I'd like to call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of February 8, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Nope. Appointments, recognitions, and resignations, none presented. Consent agenda, department reports, highway, buildings and grounds, thank you note from Mount Desert Nursing Association, and grant funding to be used towards the replacement of the 2 culverts on the Beach Hill Crossroad with a stream smart road crossing.
I'd move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Seconded.
Great. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any selectmen's reports? No. Unfinished business, traffic committee.
Ed Copeland on this evening?
Haven't seen him.
How about Jim Willis?
Jim's here.
Jim,
Ed Derlin, I'm here.
yeah, Jim, why don't you start, because you had a few ideas that you wanted to bat around, so I think might be a good.
Well, I
time
think
to hear
my ideas are more questions than solutions, so I'll try.
Okay.
I wasn't really sure what brought this to the agenda. I haven't seen much besides Sam's email that maybe some people want to talk about parking in the new Northeast Harbor after it's finished. And I just offered up to Derlin. The traffic committee hasn't met for, somewhere between 5 and 10 years. And I wondered what the board, if we have direction from the board on what we're supposed to be doing, if we need a traffic committee. And I was hoping we could define those things if you want to have a traffic committee. The other thing I talked about with Derlin was alternatively, in Bar Harbor, the traffic committee, much like here, we struggled to staff it with volunteers, that is. And many of the functions that the traffic committee did end up being performed by staff. And I think that's what we've really defaulted to in Mount Desert for the last few years. The crosswalks come to mind. That was largely Tony's effort with some engineers' help with funding from the town. The flashing speed signs in Soamesville, Otter Creek now as well. And we've got one to go in and Seal Harbor. So I guess I was just hoping to have a discussion about, can staff perform some of these functions, or do we need to have an actual traffic townwide committee? If you wanted staff to perform some of the functions, then I think we'd look to get a policy from you on general guidance when people want things you'd like us to check out and report out to you on. So that's kind of where I left off, I think, with Derlin, and he asked me to bring it to the meeting.
Is there any reason, I don't want to disenfranchise anybody, but is there any reason that the Board of Selectmen can't deal with traffic issues? I mean, if you haven't met in 5 or 10 years, it doesn't sound like, and there may be some big items coming up. There are, but I don't see that.
Yeah, largely a few years ago, it's probably more than a few now, but we hired James Collier in Bar Harbor to help us rewrite the traffic ordinance. We kind of cleaned it up and really haven't had to do much with it for several years. And I think the energy that has spurred this discussion is the COA building, the unknown, what's this going to work like when the construction finally finishes. And I don't know, I'm kind of in the mindset we should wait and see before we go trying to resolve things. But I don't know. The traffic committee existed when I came to work here 18 years ago, and I don't know that we knew its purpose back then, frankly.
Yeah. Kathy, go ahead. You had something to say?
Yes, I will say, I think it is beyond just the new building that COA is planning to construct. And that I know when we built our building at Old Firehouse Lane, we had originally had plans for 3 apartments and more office space. But there were concerns raised then about where's everybody going to park. And so we scaled back the size of the project, which means that there's less housing. We've also been approached by other people who rent apartments in town that do not have off-street parking, who are now allowed to park in the wintertime in open lots because there are no overnight parking spots allowed. So I just think that as a community, if our town comprehensive plan is to bring back a year-round population, and we want to have more apartments filled and more businesses in town, but every time you try and do something, you're restricted by how much parking is available. When we have a big parking lot, we have several big parking lots that are vacant most of the year, but are restricted in terms of overnight parking. I just think maybe the town should address our seeming parking issue, even though it might be a perception of a problem, so that we can fulfill other parts the town has said it wants to do in having a more robust year-round community of people living and working in town.
And John, I think that's a great example of something that if we know what the board was trying to accomplish, we could probably bring you back some options. You know, if you do this, here's the trade-off. If you do that, here's who's not being treated fairly. We deal with those issues day to day at the police department, and if you want to do a traffic committee, that's fine too. But oftentimes it ends up being us coming back to the elected officials saying, okay, here's your choices.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that we could probably streamline this a little bit and just handle everything at the board level.
That's an optimistic thought, John, but having been the chairman of the traffic committee many years ago, I can tell you that it's not just thinking about doing something and making it happen. We had to work with the DOT regarding as you enter Sonesville and reducing the speed there because people were concerned. We worked regarding the yield stop sign on Main Street at the intersection of Main Street and Summit Road. We did a lot of different things in the traffic committee. So I think that it's lovely to think that the selectmen would take it on, but I think it's a bigger kettle of fish than what you realize it is. And I think we also did work with the police department to get things done, and they were very helpful in regards to knowing how to negotiate with the state to reduce speed limits and those kind of things. So I hate to say yes, another committee, but I can tell you it's not just rubber stamping a change. There's a lot to be considered.
All right.
I would also, just as Jeff, I would also add that, I mean, if the traffic committee also concerns itself with things like crosswalks. There's been a lot of questions recently about crosswalks that we've had discussions about why they were reduced or why, and I would love to see more eyes on and more ears involved in those discussions, in hearing those things from the state and from, you know, anybody working in the town, so we can make better decisions.
And John, I'll just offer up that many of the things that we're talking about right now are really beyond our authority. Speed limits are not. DOT has to do that. We have to follow so many regulations now that they do become staff functions, like Katrina said, and we would take direction and go out and see what we could do. That's what reduced the crosswalks, as we went to a workshop and found out how to do them legally. And sometimes the committee, I think, used to decide where crosswalks went, and it kind of got us, after a number of years, into a place where we had to take a professional look at it. And that's why I say if you're going to have a traffic committee, I really hope you give it a definition, a role, and a purpose, as opposed to a place to just rehash things that have been decided.
Seems to me that one of the concerns is we're having trouble populating our committees with volunteers and with the existing committees, and to try and resurrect the traffic committee might be difficult in that regard as well.
I'd like us to try to, I know there's a couple of members on there that are interested in still pursuing it, so you'd like us to try to repopulate it before you make any definitive decisions. It'll be up to you.
Matt?
Well, I was just going to say, I think, over the past couple of years with Soamesville in particular, we've had some residents come to meetings, and I mean, I know we haven't always been able to give them the answer that they necessarily wanted, but I think our reaction and any action that we're able to take was done relatively quickly. I think about like the flashing signs, the speed trailers. I know we talked about, you know, there was concern about speeding through that Main Street section of Soamesville, and we learned, I think from Chief Willis and Tony, that that's a DOT thing. And sometimes it can take a couple years just to get them to do a traffic study, even, which it would be required to do any sort of change. I think it's just streamlined to have us do it. I think parking and things like that in a downtown area that might be more part of a comprehensive plan to go with year-round housing is sort of another thing. But if we're having trouble staffing a committee, you know, and we are able to accomplish things this way, just working with staff and the board, I think we're okay for right now, personally. That's just my opinion.
Wendy, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think I would like to see, I haven't heard a whole lot about parking, and I would love to sort of like agree with Matt and sort of Jim, and let's try to see how this pans out over the next few weeks and months. And I hate to have a committee formed, especially with so much of this is out of our hands. And then if we find as a board or as a, you know, staff and board that, you know, we're not able to keep up, then maybe we can resurrect that committee. But I'd like to see what it's going to entail before we reach out and try to man another committee, because,
Right.
you know,
Just a point of clarification, you do have a traffic committee that is still active and on the boards with members. So what the word resurrect would mean to try to add a few more members, but it is a functioning official town committee at the moment. So my suggestion would be perhaps you might want to look at it for a while to see if it can be added, but then you would actually probably want to deactivate it if you don't want it any longer, because it is active with appointed members with terms at this point in time. So
Jerry's got his hand up.
Jerry, go ahead.
It just seems to me that there's two different issues. There's parking in Northeast Harbor, and then there's traffic flow throughout the rest of the towns and Northeast Harbor on the island, and that they're really not the same thing.
That's true. All right, so Matt.
Well, could I just add, like, and I know Kathy, you mentioned like the winter parking, and I've had people mention that to me as well. And I was once a resident of beautiful downtown Northeast Harbor, so I do know that is an issue. Chief Willis, is that the sort of thing we could direct your staff to say, what would the options be? Are there any realistic options? And again, what's the upside and what's the potential downside to those changes?
The overnight parking for winter, forgive me for keep going back to Bar Harbor, we did it last winter. They had a similar ban and it became problematic, and it involves working with Public Works, because the reason you have the ban is to allow them to do the work they do when the weather's bad. And if there's cars in the lots, you got to have them moved. So there are choices there, and I haven't talked to Tony about this yet, and really should before I get too deep into it, but I think there's options. You just have to let us know what you want to do.
How does everyone else feel about that?
Well, I think that's probably a good plan, is we need to see what we have to deal with, I think, first, to figure out whether or not a committee is appropriate.
Or we should resurrect a current committee, see what's going to happen where it hasn't been functioning in the last several years as a true committee. It would be nice to see let's see what we need over the next few months, because we'll probably know more as things get busier and the Main Street project finishes.
To do that. I don't think they're looking for an action here.
would
John?
you like us?
Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
Well, I just thought I'd let you know, I wasn't there, but I understand at the planning board meeting last week, when Noel Musson presented information to them that he had presented to the warrant committee earlier, the Luso changes coming up. He asked, is there anything else you want me to work on? And the committee asked him to look at parking. So just throwing that out there. There's a different committee that is looking at this issue as well and has asked the town consultant to look at it.
So Kathy, parking is an ordinance that the selectmen are able to change at any time during the year. It's kind of different than Luso. I'll talk to Noel about it if maybe he can give a call.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I'll let him know. Thank you.
The question I would ask, do you want us to try to get, put a possible direction in there? Do you want us to try to do another recruitment surge for volunteers for the traffic and any other committees that may be understaffed at this time? So I'll await your direction on what you want me to do about that.
Yeah, I would imagine that sort of the effort to populate or keep our committees populated should be something that's ongoing. So yes, that short answer is yes, from my perspective. I don't know what the rest of you feel.
I would agree that a continuous effort needs to be made. I'm not particularly optimistic that it'll be successful. Service positions are needed everywhere unless fewer and fewer people are willing to serve, it seems.
I think, I know that we have it listed on our website, but, advertising is probably not a bad idea, but it seems to me the best way to recruit people is to look them in the eye and ask them one-on-one, so that members of the existing committee, if they want to add to their committee, their best bet might be to reach out to people that they consider valuable to that committee and ask them to join.
And I would think, Derlin, you must, or someone must have a current list of who is on the, I guess, traffic committee.
Oh, yes.
Maybe
Sure.
it would be worth it to reach out to those existing members, and just say, we're in the discussion phase of getting this committee, seeing if we need to resurrect this committee, and are you still interested in serving? And if you are, at least we've got that happening.
We've done part of that. We've asked the ones that are currently there whether they wish to continue, and they said yes. We have not done the second part, though, Wendy, and that could be done. So we've done half of it at this point.
This is Donna. I have a question. Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I had my raised hand, but I don't know who sees it or not. But anyway,
Yeah, if you can screen something.
I recently joined the Harbor Committee, and I know that is one of the parking in Northeast is one of the topics that's important to the committee. And I'm a total newbie at this point, but if you were looking for committee members to join something about parking that had anything to do with Northeast, I think that perhaps there would be people that are on the Harbor Committee that are, intimately aware with parking issues in the harbor that might want to be part of that. Or
Donna, why
Yeah.
don't you spread the word?
I'm happy to do that. I just, thought that maybe, it'd be good for you to know that is, something that's on the top of their mind. I'll let them know.
Okay, Darrell, what do you want out of this at the end of the day?
I put a motion, but I don't really need a motion. Your general assent that you'd like us to try to make some efforts to bring some more people onto these committees. That's all.
All right, that's good by me. Do I have a motion?
This is Wendy. I would move that we ask Derlin and others to reach out to impending volunteers to fill current committees and make sure that we have enough people to serve on the committees that we have established before we establish any new committees.
Second.
Right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Okay, let's get to the third-party requests. I have Community Health and Counseling Services here.
They're not coming. They sent an email. It was attached. I don't know where.
All right, they're definitely not coming. Okay, Health Equity Alliance.
Yes, I'm here. My name is Kelly McDonald. I'm here on behalf of Health Equity Alliance.
Okay.
To be honest, I've never done one of these before, so I wasn't sure if I just need to make a quick statement, if you have questions for me. But for those that are not aware, Health Equity Alliance, formerly known as Down East AIDS Network, we have offices in Calais, Machias, Ellsworth, Bangor, Belfast, and Rockland, where we serve people living with HIV and AIDS, the LGBTQ+ community, people who use drugs, and our unhoused community members. We offer case management for people living with HIV and AIDS and for people who use drugs, support groups for LGBTQ+ adults, a LGBTQ+ youth group, HIV and HCV testing, a syringe exchange, Narcan training, as well as nasal and intramuscular Narcan, and a food pantry that is all free to all of our clients as well as community members. We also organize the Bangor Pride as well as many other community events to bring people together to celebrate diversity and inclusivity. And all of this work is only possible through the generous donations of our community members. And we look forward to continued support from Mount Desert.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, Northern Light Home Care and Hospice.
I'm here. My name is Jackie Welsh. I'm the Director of Philanthropy and Community Relations. Northern Light Home Care and Hospice provided 12 visits, 12 patients with care last year, fiscal year 20. We have on an annual basis throughout the state, we do more than 3 million miles in traveling to take care of people. Last year, we made 7,566 visits to home health. We visited 7,567 home health patients and totaled 130,340 visits. Hospice patients, we took care of 1,139 and made 46,755 visits. We do cover all of Hancock County. To the town of Mount Desert, we had 11 patients needing care at home, recovering from illness and surgery. That's our home health program. We made 168 visits to them. We only had one patient on hospice last year. And that person received 4 visits. We do a lot of work out on Mount Desert Island and definitely have seen an uptake in required visits out there. We are very nimble and visit patients regardless of ability to pay. Main Care reimburses us at 50% of our cost. Medicare reimburses us at, I would say, like 90% of our costs. So we're always looking to trim our budget to stay in line, but we do have some struggles, and support from communities like yours does help us meet some of those deficits. The other things we're doing, particularly up in Hancock County, this week we're offering a COVID vaccine clinic to the residents of Stonington. We are offering them out in Bangor, out in southwest parts of York County. We're going to Monhegan Island. We are all over the place. We've been all over the place testing up in Hancock County. We were very deeply involved in the crisis at Deer Island Nursing Home. So we are out there doing a lot more than home care and home care visits and hospice visits. Indeed, we also have been relied on by the Maine CDC testing, and we've done a lot of testing of senior facilities out in Hancock County. I know the island doesn't have assisted living, but we are the only hospice program out there.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions?
I have one question. We had a third-party request from another hospice group, I believe, Hospice Volunteers of Hancock County. Do you collaborate with them at all?
They are the hospice volunteers for us. We contract with them. So they're not a hospice provider. Medicare requires 5% of the hospice benefit to come from volunteers. So in Bangor, we have our own volunteer coordinator and set of volunteers. We do in Presque Isle and we do in South Portland. But in Hancock County and in Kennebec and Waterville, we contract with their area hospice volunteer agencies. So, but we're the ones providing the skilled care and the bereavement services and as I said, the medical, the physicians and the clinicians. They're not Medicare certified.
All right, thanks.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay, why don't we move on to Seal Harbor Village Improvement?
May I add one thing? If the town does need a remote clinic, we are happy to come there. These towns that we're working with have reached out to us for vaccine. I'm just throwing that out there as an FYI. If Derlin wants to reach out to me.
How do we do that?
Derlin can reach out to us. I'll connect him to the person that coordinates all our vaccines. That's how we got involved with the town of Stonington and all these other communities. I just thought, since I'm on the line here, I'd take the opportunity to let you know that.
That would be terrific.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, Derlin, go.
I think you have my email.
Yeah,
Great, thank you. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Yeah, Alex Stevens here for the VIS.
Yes.
I think a lot of people know what we do, and I sent the report in. We have 3 full-time employees and a part-time. Deb Brown was a bookkeeper, beautification and maintenance of the Seal Harbor Beach and the green, and maintain that throughout the spring and summer, certainly. And then the fall, there's a lot of sort of work around the monuments and trails that we do as well. The organization's been around for over 100 years, so something that I feel pretty honored to continue tradition of supporting. We need to raise about 130,000 or so throughout the year, so a lot of that through private fundraising, but I'm certainly indebted to the town and your support for our organization.
Very good. Questions?
I'm not sure if it's a question. I know I'm relatively new at this, but I continue to be confused about why in particular this property of Mount Desert is contracted out for care from another organization. I don't know if you can answer that, Mr. Stevens, or whether that's something that needs to be continually discussed, but
From what I understand, my research, it's supplemental. I think I did a deep dive and found out that there was a Northeast Harbor Village Improvement Society and a Bar Harbor Village Improvement Societies. I'm not sure what happened to them. John D. Rockefeller really helped, start this one way back when. It's been just ongoing, and they did everything from, I think one of the earliest responsibilities was ensuring the safety of the milk in the area and drinking water. So, and then there was some social aspect to it as well, too, in terms of supporting the community, sort of year-rounders and summer folks coming together to do that. But I think given the beach and the green, it's just additional attention to detail, sort of beyond what I guess what the town can cover. We're certainly appreciative of that too, but the additional work that Larry does is just vital to us.
Thank you, Alex. If I'm listening correctly to what Jeff is asking, I think he'd like to know why we're supporting labor for something that might be a town function. Is that what you're really asking, Jeff?
Yes, because I mean, there are many other village improvement societies that do things that are above and beyond what we could consider the Public Works Department to take care of, and certainly we're appreciative of the good work that's done. But I don't know why there are in the list. I mean, the funding that is requested for the Seal Harbor Village Improvement Society far exceeds that of any other. And it's the only one that includes payroll and insurance benefits for employees that are not town employees. And it just gets confusing to me.
I just have one comment. This is Donna. I believe that the Northeast Harbor Village Improvement Association is still functioning, and isn't Jerry Summonsby in charge of that? And
yeah, yes.
Yeah. So we had mentioned that it wasn't in existence, but I just want to clarify that I believe it is.
As is the Village Improvement Society for Soamesville and others.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, they're all, and the Pretty Marsh has one, and they're all functioning, but they're all functioning on as far as I know, on a volunteer basis, and don't have paid employees that are subsidized by the town.
Jerry.
I think in the past, Tony has said that in his opinion, the trade-off for the Village Improvement Society and Seal Harbor doing the work is very, very cost effective compared to if the town did the work.
He has said that.
Yeah.
Doesn't change the question.
No.
I think, Jeff, it's one of those traditions that's been part of the town for a long time. These village improvement societies do wonderful work. And in the case of Seal Harbor, their job is immense. And they do a beautiful job. The beach and the village green and the paths that they tend are all lovely and a big attraction for the town. So I appreciate their work, and I think the way it's set up, it works for us and it works for them.
And that beach is pretty hard to maintain. It gets really messed up.
Yeah, I agree. Anyone who's been around the summertime to see, how busy it can be, and whether the town or would have the man hours or manpower to, attend to that as carefully and as thoughtfully as Larry and his crew does. I'm not sure. It is a tradition that I inherited too. So.
Oh, and I understand that, and I appreciate that you guys that you do excellent care of the property, and it just raises a question for me that, having been the way we've always done it is not, in my mind, always a good justification for continuing. If the town can't take care of it, then I would be interested in why, and it just doesn't make sense to me that we have to fund a village improvement society that's paying health benefits for somebody to take care of property that belongs to the town. I don't want to disparage your society at all. I know you do excellent work, and I'm sure you use the money wisely and everything else. But it just is. It doesn't make sense to me. That's all.
Can I just add? Because I've been thinking about this. I mean, this is a conversation. Let's face it, we have it every year. And at some point it will become a tipping point where you have to say, okay, does this continue to work for both parties? That's not a conversation I think we have at a third party request. But I'm glad that Jeff is asking that question. But it makes me think that, like raking the beach, for example, isn't something you can do at 10 a.m. in the morning. You have to do it before anyone's on there's little things like that. And I think some of the services and things that get done, I would hate if the Seal Harbor Village Improvement Society ever sort of fell on the rocks there. It's a sort of thing, much like the ambulance service. We would hate to have it fall in our laps at the last second. So I think it's important for us as a town to have open dialogue, not just with Seal Harbor Village Improvement, but the other village improvement societies, because what they do is valuable and it adds a lot to our town. And we'd hate to see, we want to have a contingency plan in place in case we ever needed it, God forbid. Just my thoughts.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
I have one more question. It's Donna Reese.
Yep.
How many volunteers are in the Volunteer Village Association for Seal Harbor?
Volunteers. We have a board. I don't know if we have volunteers.
We have a board that has 26 members.
And
those-
they go out and help clean up the beach. I don't really understand that. I just wanted to know more.
No, they don't clean up beach. Larry does that. The directors do the management, and they also decide what needs to be done with the trails and those sort of things.
So there's no volunteers that actually do the work.
Sometimes there are, but not as, it's not part of anybody's duty to do.
We've had a trail committee that used to go out and do some of the work on that, like to maintain some of the trails that we have. But a lot of it is additional fundraising that we do, and just as a kind of managerial capacity, because Larry's been doing it for 40 years, so supporting him as a member of the community and kind of an icon in Seal Harbor.
It also depends on interest also. When they had the clean water thing there were a number of directors who were interested in that, and they tested the water regularly. And, so it depends on the individual project that might come under the duties of the VIS, and those who are interested volunteer.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any more questions? No. Great. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Moving along, WIC nutrition program.
Hello,
Hi there.
Connie. I'm the director of the WIC nutrition program. Last year we had a slight decrease in participation, so that reflects in our decreased ask for this year. I think we're only asking for 475.
So it's 495.
95, yeah. Because we had 11 people participate in the program last year. We switched over to cards. So the program's now more accessible for more people. And we have been doing a lot more travel to MDI in general with the pandemic, dropping off electric breast pumps, diapers, wipes, just because the families seem to be having more need as their employments have been impacted by the pandemic. So that's our update.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, I would like to thank the third-party requesters for coming tonight. Very good. Okay, now I'd like to skip the draft warrant review and leave it till the end so we can get through the new business. Okay, as requested by members of the warrant committee, consideration of testing the inflow to our 3 wastewater treatment plants for the COVID-19 virus at an estimated annual cost of $55,000 to $75,000 to collect samples for testing to generate a beneficial use of the data.
You have Ed Montague, our wastewater superintendent, is with us tonight. Apparently at the Public Works budget review, some members of the warrant committee suggested it might be a useful thing to look at testing of our wastewater plants for COVID. Not knowing too much about that, Tony asked Ed to do some research and to come back to him with a recommendation as to whether that would be a cost-effective use of our town resources. So I don't want to steal Ed's thunder. I think he could take you through his memo and come up with the recommendation, which I have printed in my manager's memo. So Ed, good to see you. Welcome to the meeting.
Well, hi, it's my first Zoom meeting, but
Yeah.
for those that you don't know me, I'm Ed Montague, I'm the wastewater superintendent. Tony did come to me and ask me to look into what it would take to test for COVID. It's on our end, it's relatively simple to collect the samples. We have places we can send them. I just don't have a good idea as to what we would do with the information that we receive back from the laboratories. Most of what it would tell us is if there was COVID in the wastewater. We do know that it's potentially there because of what the CDC tells us and you know how they break it down by town, what we have for cases. Wastewater is inherently dangerous. There's all kinds of viruses in it. So just my feeling that, you know, just to identify this one is really not worth that expense. The money could be used for other things if we had to. I mean, the goal is to keep it within the collection system. We don't really have any issues at this time, but it gets to our plant, we treat it, it's disinfected, and it's sent out into the receiving waters. I don't really have an understanding, I guess, as far as what we would do with this information or what the benefit would be.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Ed. I think that without a clear idea as to how the data would be useful, I think spending, what was it, 55 to 75,000 bucks a year to test influent coming from upwards of what, a couple hundred homes?
Right. The places that do test for COVID usually pinpoint areas that they want to test. You know, like colleges, like I mentioned in our memo, is that a college would test at a dorm, and they could tell, you know, if there's evidence that there's COVID coming from the dorm, that's usually an indication is 3 to 5 days before you'll see it at the hospital. So they could basically quarantine the dorm and the people in it and try and keep that from spreading. Everything that's coming to our plant is from the entire collection system. So we wouldn't have any idea, you know, where it's coming from. There's just no way to tell. We would know it's there, but not from where.
Yeah, that's not all that helpful.
Ed, this was an excellent report.
Yeah.
It was very interesting, and it looked like you looked at all aspects of this, and it sounded like not only the expense, but the number. In order to be effective, you just have to be testing all the time, and it just doesn't seem worthwhile to me. So I agree with your assessment, and I appreciate you doing the research on it.
Yeah, as do I.
This is Donna Reese. Yeah, thank you for your research and your consideration of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be almost more scary to know and then have no idea what to do with it. So I think until we have, you know, someone else comes up with some other way to tell where it's coming from, that would be a lot of extra effort and time and money to really not prove a whole lot.
Yeah, there's no benefit to the health and well-being of the residents of Mount Desert by doing it. It would be kind of cool to, over the course of the pandemic, it might scare you, but I think it'd be kind of cool to see how it ebbs and flows, but there's no benefit to the residents, unfortunately.
Ebb and flow, really?
All right.
So Derlin, do we need to put this as a positive motion?
I put in a positive motion to accept the recommendations of wastewater superintendent Ed Montague to not test the 3 wastewater treatment plants in Mount Desert, something along those lines.
I would make that motion that we accept the report as it is and choose not to opt for this testing procedure.
I would second that.
Good. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Oh, Great, thank you.
Thank you, Ed, for
you.
coming. We much
Thanks, Ed.
appreciate it.
And for the clear report, it made it super easy to sort of know what we need to know and how to move forward without a lot of discussion. So super helpful.
Okay, item B, review and approval of the 2021 summer dockage rates for the Northeast Harbor Marina.
As printed, you can accept a motion to accept the rates as recommended by the Harbor Committee, and it's broken down into vessels per feet. And there's also a motion to adjust the winter rates as well. And you've got those printed out if there's any questions. I don't know if John is on the line. John Lemoyne. No, it's
No, I don't
very
see-
clear.
Well, the only, if I could, the only thing that I didn't really get, and again, I'm new to this, there was nowhere, it said like, change it from 295 per foot for what length of time? Is that a per day or per hour? or
That's per day.
Okay,
$2.05
doesn't say that
per
anywhere
day.
in there.
That is a critical.
Probably
piece.
just an assumption because of so many members on the board, Jeff.
Well,
right?
I'm
It's a
like,
good question.
because I've asked before, because I know that the marina, or the Harbor Committee, the marina runs pretty much self-sufficiently. But,
Yes.
you know, and I know they have revenue and I know they have expenses, but I'm trying to wrap my mind around where that comes from. So 295 per foot per day. Got
Per
it.
day. Right.
Per day. Thank you.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Oh, there's
This is
John.
John.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So
Jeff,
if you have any questions,
I have a question, John. How does this compare with other harbors in the area? Is this in line?
we're lower than, our only real competition is Dysart's. So I'll break it down real quick for you. For Dysart's vessels under 50 feet, they're going, if we move up 10 cents like I'm asking, Dysart's would be 40 cents more per foot. If between 50 and 64 feet, at our, what I'm asking for, Dysart's would be 15 cents more per foot than us. 65 to 100 feet, Dysart's would be 10 cents more per foot than we are. And vessels over 100 feet, they are going to be 95 cents more expensive than we are. So we're tracking below them, and we always have. I try to keep us in line, somewhere in the same ballpark as where we are. And, you know, we're the place that everybody wants to come to. If they can't get into us, they hang their heads and go to Southwest Harbor.
And pay more.
And pay more, yes.
Thank you, John.
Great, thanks, John.
And the last time we increased the rates was 2017. And just for a hint, even with COVID last year, the actual marina part of our facility had the best year it's ever had.
Okay.
So this is Wendy. I guess I would move approval of the rates as defined in the memo from John Lemoyne, Harbor Master.
Second.
Great. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, item C, Winter Spring Inc.
Thank
doing
you.
bus- Thank you, John. Winter Spring Inc. doing business as Colonel's Restaurant, 143 Main Street, Northeast Harbor, request for liquor license renewal.
Just the renewal.
I would move approval.
Yeah,
Second.
With enthusiasm that we're getting to this point in our lives.
Yeah.
Thank
It
you.
was 40 degrees when the sun went down. It'll be 8 when we get up in the morning. So don't get too enthusiastic.
All right, it's there. There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Spring's almost here.
Yeah,
Great.
it was moved
Okay.
in second. I don't know if we voted. Did we vote?
No,
We haven't voted.
Okay, who moved it and who seconded it?
I moved it.
Jeff seconded it. Oh, Martha.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
I
Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, let's turn back to item C under unfinished business. Okay.
this is this is the first night we've got a lot of articles ready that you can vote to move forward onto the warrant. Jeff's new, he is not used to this. We have our Christmas tree colors. If the draft warrant is printed in green, that means it's ready for your consideration to be voted. If it's in red, it needs further work, and it will be brought back to our meeting a week from tonight at 6:30. So we'd like to clean off is a lot of these are just routine that we do every year. Some of the others are the department requests, funding requests that you and the warrant committee have already reviewed but have not voted on. So we leave that at your pleasure what you do with these, but you can vote on these tonight, a lot of these if you would like.
But the black ones have already been voted?
The black ones are the things like you don't really need.
Okay.
They're just every year. There's no change. They're just the
Okay.
old standard things. So maybe we should just put those in green too.
Yeah,
because,
probably.
Well, except there's no words in them. That's all. I mean, that was my only question. Some of them say, see Appendix B, and there's no Appendix B, and they say entitled
Right,
X, and there's no X, I don't know. So, okay, but the black things are not up for discussion or waiting
That's
for
right.
further development. They just haven't been added to the document yet, sort of.
Well, the warrant committee down here, for example, we don't know what they're going to vote, so we put in X's.
I guess what he's referring to is the text.
Like Article 6, shall an ordinance dated May 4th, 2021 and entitled X be enacted, see Appendix B, and that's not
I
green
think that's a
or red.
placeholder at this point, Jeff, that was in there in
Okay.
case we needed it. So there's nothing, there really is no Article 6 at this point. So you're not necessarily voting on the numbers, you're voting on the content. The numbers will change as we go around.
Fair enough.
And the green ones that are already in there, Jeff, are those are the ones we see every year. Yeah. Okay, so shall we get started? Okay, Article, Derlin, do we need a, how can we count this? Can we do it the way we've been doing our votes?
I can't remember last year whether you did them all by hand or why don't you, Heidi, what would you prefer? Would you prefer a written vote on that?
This is Heidi.
Voice vote?
Last year, you would have done it going through the list like you do for your warrant, right? Your end of the, your amounts you're voting on at the end of each meeting. But that was because we were so early in the COVID. That's how you were doing it.
Yeah.
I think that in case that's how you have to do it, that's how I do it. Rather than going back and realizing you made some sort of mistake due to it being worn and official.
They should just very quickly say how they vote.
I'm sorry. I know it's time consuming.
So we
Well,
say,
we'll take the,
we say our name and then how we're voting?
Yeah, just like we're voting on the warrant, yeah.
There's not that many of these anyway, so it won't be a huge time drag.
Could we do it where if there's just any nays, we could go back and go by name so it's clear who voted in favor and who voted against? But like most of these that are, my guess is the alewife ordinance will probably be unanimous. Do we really need to? I mean, I'm up for anything, but.
I think what Heidi says, Matt, we want to make sure, because we don't want to go back next week and have to vote them all again. So it'll take 30 seconds more per article, I think. There's not that many.
And
let's do it right and then we don't have any problems.
Last clarifying question. You said the article numbers may change. So when we vote on these, do we want to vote on them as topics or?
Yeah, what you're doing is voting on the LY as it's Article 4 at the moment, but you don't need to say Article 4 in your motion.
So what would we say, the alewife ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually have to read these, Jeff.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Riveting. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we ready?
We're ready.
Okay. Shall an ordinance dated May 4, 2021 and entitled Town of Mount Desert Alewife Ordinance be enacted?
This is Wendy. I move approval.
Martha seconds.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha votes yes.
Oh,
Jeff, how do you
Wendy-
vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye.
See
Right,
how
I'll
quick
get it.
that was?
Okay.
That was quick.
You're
All
mixing
right.
it up, Wendy.
Sorry. Yes, I got it.
Okay, shall an ordinance dated May 4th, 2021 and entitled Public Right of Way be enacted?
This is Jeff Wood. I move it shall.
This is Wendy. I shall second.
Okay, Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Which number is this? I'm sorry.
This is Article 5,
Okay, Matt Hart votes aye.
and I vote aye. All right. See, this is Article 9, or currently Article 9, gifts, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept conditional gifts, MRSA 30-A 5654, unconditional gifts, MRSA 30-A 5655.
This
Would
is
say-
standard stuff.
Yeah,
This is Wendy. I would move approval of Article 9 as stated.
okay. Wait a second, Martha, we can't hear you.
Sorry, Martha Dudman seconds.
Okay, Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And I vote aye. Okay. Article 10, leases, agreements, easements, deeds, and sales. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to lease a portion of the so-called Visitor Center at the Northeast Harbor Marina to the ticket booth operators for a term of 1 year, beginning July 1, 2021, under such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen in its sole discretion deems to be in the best interests of the town.
This is Matt, and I would recommend, we recommend passage.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Great. Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
And I vote aye. John McCauley votes aye. Article 11, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to lease a portion of the so-called Visitor Center at the Northeast Harbor Marina to the Mount Desert Chamber of Commerce for a term of 1 year, beginning July 1, 2021, under such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen in its sole discretion deems to be in the best interest of the town.
Matt Hart moves we recommend passage.
Wendy Littlefield seconds.
Hey, Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
And I vote aye. Okay. Article 12, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will authorize the Board of Selectmen to negotiate and enter into an agreement with the Neighborhood House Club, Inc. for management and maintenance of the municipal swimming pool under such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen in its sole discretion deems to be in the best interest of the town.
Jeff Wood moves recommendation.
Wendy Littlefield seconds.
Great. Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Matt?
I abstain.
And John votes aye. Okay. Article
On
12.
Article 13 and 14 and 50, we have the tax collector is with us tonight, Lisa. If you have any questions, she'd be happy to answer any of those on those articles.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Article 12, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will authorize the Board of Selectmen to negotiate and enter into an agreement with the Neighborhood House. Okay, we did this.
Yes.
You're doing 13.
Yeah, sorry about that. Article 13, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to approve July 1 each year as the date on which all taxes shall be due and payable, providing that all unpaid taxes on September 1 of each year shall be charged interest at an annual rate of 6% per year. Tax club members are exempt within the terms and conditions of the town's tax club agreement.
This is Jeff Wood. I recommend passage of this.
Wendy Littlefield seconds.
Great. Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Thank you. Article 14, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize a tax collector to enter into a standard tax club agreement with taxpayers whereby the taxpayer agrees to pay specified monthly payments to the town agrees to waive interest on timely payments. The town authorizes the tax collector to accept payment of taxes prior to commitment of taxes. The agreement automatically terminates if 2 consecutive payments are missed, and the taxpayer thereupon becomes subject to the same due date and interest rate as other non-participating taxpayers. Only taxpayers who are paid in full on their property tax obligations may participate. And 6, interested taxpayers shall apply annually for participation by the date shown on the application, date and application format to be determined by the tax collector.
Martha Dudman recommends passage.
Jeff Wood seconds.
Hey, Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Thank you. Article 15, accept, to see if the town will vote to authorize the tax collector to accept prepayment of property taxes not yet committed, not to exceed the estimated amount to be committed in 2021, with no interest to be paid on same.
Wendy Littlefield moves approval.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Okay, Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Okay, Article 16, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to set the interest rate to be paid by the town for abated taxes that have been paid at the rate of 3% per year.
Dudman recommends passage.
Wendy Littlefield seconds.
Okay, Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Thank you. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize expenditures to pay any tax abatements granted by the assessor, board assessment review, or board of selectmen together with any interest due thereon from the town during the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021, in an aggregate amount not to exceed the property tax commitment overlay.
Wendy Littlefield moves approval.
Jeff Wood seconds.
Okay, does anybody need an explanation for that? Okay.
No.
Okay, Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Jeff?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Article 18, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose by public bid of town-owned property other than real property with a value of $10,000 or less under such terms and conditions as it deems advisable.
Martha Dudman recommends passage.
Wendy Littlefield seconds.
Right, Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. I was going to say, John, how do you vote? Okay. Article 19, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to sell at public auction or by advertised sealed bid and to convey titles obtained under tax deeds and under deeds of conveyance to the inhabitants of the town, any land and or buildings, including trailers, in lieu of payment of taxes, except that the selectmen have the power to authorize redemption. Municipal officers shall use the special sale process required by 36 MRS 943-C for qualifying homestead property if they choose to sell it to anyone other than the former owners.
Wendy Littlefield moves approval.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Okay, any questions? Okay, Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Article 20, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to contract for services in amounts not to exceed appropriation for same under such terms and conditions as it deems advisable.
Wendy Littlefield moves approval.
Martha Bennett seconds.
Right. Any questions? Okay, Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Article 21, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to transfer $500,000 from the undesignated fund balance account 100-38300 to reduce the 21-22 tax commitment.
Wendy Littlefield moves approval.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Okay, I have a question
Can
for
I, yeah.
Kathy.
Sorry, yeah, I do too. I just want to understand this and
Okay.
the next one and the next one, quite frankly.
So Kathy, is Kathy here?
No, Lisa is.
Or Lisa? Okay, Lisa. That $500,000 seems pretty aggressive. Is that, we did 400 last year, didn't we?
No, we did 500. We
You did
started with 4 and went up to 500.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's in good shape. So that's what Treasurer Kathy Bahar recommends that we can easily do.
Okay. Could you describe for everyone exactly what this means?
What that means is basically you're moving money from undesignated fund balance or surplus over to reduce the tax commitment on the budget for that year. So that's $500,000 less that you have to raise through the property tax. And those, what happens at the end of every year, money goes back into undesignated fund balance that isn't spent and then becomes available to reduce the property taxes. You try to get as close as you can to what the budget is what you have to raise, but there's always going to be variables, and we always turn back some money back into the general fund. So we'll bring that back forward to be able to use to reduce the next year's taxes.
Makes sense.
That makes sense.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye.
John, Article 22, don't vote on that because that came over, but that shouldn't have come over because we're not going to use capital gains for that purpose this year.
Okay. All right.
So like we could just
Let's see. Okay.
disregard that one. Yeah.
Let's jump over to Article 24. To see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and or appropriate as revenue through excise taxes, service fees, and miscellaneous sources for the 21-22 town budget. Is this pretty solid right now?
Yeah, that's pretty solid, John.
Okay.
So the board, I would move that the board recommends $1,739,943.
But who is speaking?
Wendy Littlefield is speaking.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Okay, Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Article 25, municipal appropriations. To see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 200 through 221, general government, governing body, board of selectmen, municipal management, town clerk, registrar, elections, planning board, finance, treasurer, tax collector, assessment, code enforcement, unallocated funds, human resources, and technology for the 21-22 town budget. The numbers are shown below.
This is Wendy. I would recommend $1,478,989 total dollars as broken down on the article.
Jeff Wood seconds.
Yeah.
I have a question that the Board of Selectmen looks, it's an odd number.
35,301.
Yeah.
That is an odd number.
Yeah, probably should have been 35,000, but we'll give you 300. We'll give you an extra $1.
We all can split that, Martha.
Yeah. You buy a cup of coffee.
Not even.
All right. Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
And Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Yikes. Article 26, to see what some of the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 300 General Assistance Support for the 21-22 town budget.
This is Wendy. I would recommend the amount of $5,000 for Article 26.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Great. Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. To see what, Article 27, to see what some of the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 350 Rural Wastewater Support for the 2021-22 town budget.
This is Jeff Wood. I recommend we put forward $198,529.
Matt Hart will second that.
Great. Okay, Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
I think Wendy Littlefield should abstain from this one. I don't know. Should I?
Do you get a rural wastewater grant?
No, but my husband works for the wastewater department, so should I
Yeah,
not?
but this is that's
that's
nothing
different.
to do with that.
Okay, Wendy Littlefield
That's-
votes aye. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
And John votes aye. Okay, Article 28, to see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 406 streetlights for the 21-22 town budget.
This is Wendy Littlefield, and I would recommend $25,750 for streetlights.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Okay, Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. To see what some of the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 401 and 408 Public Safety, Police and Communications Dispatch for the 21-22 town budget.
This is Wendy, and I would recommend that we approve $1,281,884.
Jeff Wood seconds.
Great. Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Article 30, to see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 403, 404, and 409 Public Safety, Fire Department Hydrants and Emergency Management for the 21-22 town budget.
This is Wendy. I would recommend that we approve $985,583.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Great. Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. To see what some of the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 501, 515, 520, and 525 Public Works, Roads, Waste Management, Buildings and Grounds, Parks and Cemeteries, and 530 Environmental Sustainability for the 21-22 town budget.
This is, can I do this, Sterling? It's okay. The wastewater management. This is Wendy. I would recommend that we approve $2,729,726.
Which article are we voting on?
31.
31.
31.
It includes waste management.
Yeah, that waste management is your garbage truck.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
The one that you don't want to vote on, Wendy, is 32.
Okay. So I will move 31 in that amount, $2,729,726.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Great. Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Article 32, to see what some of the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 505 and 506 sewers, wastewater treatment for the 21-22 town budget.
This is Matt Hart, and I would recommend we move a figure of $1,038,454.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Great. Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Wendy?
Wendy's going to abstain.
Okay, and John votes aye. Okay, Article 33, to see what some of the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 605 Recreation, Public Pool, Utilities, and Maintenance for the 21-22 town budget.
This is Wendy. I would move the amount of $5,900.
Jeff Wood seconds.
Great. Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you, Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
I'll abstain.
And John votes aye. Okay, Article 34, to see what some of the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 701 Economic Community Development for the 21-22 town budget.
This is Wendy. I would move the amount of $10,000.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Great. Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. To see what some of the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 801 Debt Service for the 21-22 town budget.
This is Jeff Wood. I move that we put forward the figure of $1,863,050.
This is Wendy. I will second that.
Great. Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And I vote. John votes aye. Okay, Article 37, to see what some of the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 991 Capital Improvement Plan transfers for the 21-22 town budget.
This is Wendy. I would recommend $613,907.
I think it's $607.
Oh, sorry. I will correct that amount to $613,607.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Okay, Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Okay, Marina Proprietary Fund. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to ratify the Board of Selectmen's approval of the Marina Proprietary Fund budget.
This is Wendy. I would recommend ratification. Do I have to do the amount?
No.
Oh,
Nope.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Okay, Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye.
You went through that pretty fast, John, just as promised, right?
We still got number 56. I think.
56, yeah.
Oh, I lied.
Oh, 50, that 56. Okay, good.
That darn climate.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How
that's
can we
right.
vote on it till we actually see the final text?
That might be a good idea.
We'll bring it back next week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Yeah,
We'll bring it back next week.
we can talk climate and fire department next week.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll do climate first.
Yeah, good
Right.
idea.
Then.
So good. Okay, now I believe I get to do the warrant. Treasurer's warrants. Any other business, by the way? Anybody think of anything else they need to bring up?
John,
Yes.
this is Claire.
Hi, Claire.
Hi. I asked Derlin earlier today if I could bring this up. There's some training from the Vital Records Department of the state that they're doing what they call the Brown Bag Lunch Series, and there's 7 of them from 1 p.m. to 2:30 on 7 different days. And so I'm asking if we could close the clerk's office for those 7 lunch periods in order for us to attend that training, because due to COVID, none of the clerks have been able to go to the training and keep up on any changes. Also, the state knows that we need this training, and that's why they've broken out. Usually it's a 1-day training where you'll go for the whole day, but they've broken it out into 7 sections. So as a clerk, I would strongly encourage us to keep up with the, also they modified their website recently, and I think this has part of it. They want to show us how to use the website.
Okay, that's
Claire, will the office will still be open though, right?
The office will be open. It's just the clerks won't be available.
Okay.
And this was, can you tell us again that it was 7 sessions, and what were the hours?
Yeah. So the hours were from 1 p.m. to 2:30,
Okay.
and 3 in March, 2 in April, and 1 in May.
And Claire, would we just put like something on the website that says that the clerk's office is closed, or a clerk is unavailable during those dates? Is that the easiest way to communicate that?
Yeah, I thought I would put a notice up on the website. I'd also put one in the paper. Or
Derlin,
maybe more than one.
Derlin, you don't see that as a hardship for the office at all, do you? I mean, it's really needed.
It's not convenient, but otherwise we're not going to be able to get that training. So it's one of those, I think, concessions we need to make to COVID, and hopefully we'll never have to do anything like that again.
Do they record them in case you can't attend or something like that, or?
They may. They didn't put that in their notice they sent out.
Okay.
They're just Zoom sessions. I'm sure we can ask them to record them, and they will.
okay. Well, I have no problem with you closing the office or the
Not closing the office, just the clerk.
yeah.
It sounds reasonable to me. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it sounds like a reasonable request.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion for that, or can we just say?
Yes, you would. In order to do any change in business hours, we need your approval to do that.
Claire, can you just explain, does that mean, are all of you considered clerks in the office?
No, not all of us. That would be Jennifer Buchanan, and that would be Elizabeth Yo and myself. They are deputy clerks, and I'm the town clerk. So
Okay, so theoretically, Lisa would be kind of on her own to do registrations and stuff like that.
Well, Lisa doesn't do any of that.
Oh,
So
so it's not available. So really, technically,
right, for that hour and a half, they'd have to get a cup of coffee and then come back.
Derlin,
We could certainly post.
Derlin can entertain them.
We could certainly.
Yes, Derlin will tell stories.
Yes, I can tell stories.
Yeah, and we could just post it so people don't show up expecting
So
to do
it's
business.
easier just to say the office is closed, because most of the service.
Is my mic off here?
Requires a clerk. Correct?
Oh, it's on, John.
All right.
yeah, I agree, Matt. I think that's easier for the public to understand that
Yeah, I think that's just more straightforward. Say it's closed.
for training
Everyone knows
purposes.
the hours necessary to complete the training.
Yep. So I would move that we approve to close the town office from 1 to 2:30 on those 7 dates to allow necessary training.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood, I'm a little, if I may, just commentary. I guess I would err on the side of Claire. I'd rather have a person saying we can't do that now than having it closed, because people get pissed. But I will go along and vote aye if that, I would leave it up to Claire and Derlin what they want to do about not having services available during those hours.
Well, I
Was
think
there
I'd be
are-
more upset if I got to the town office expecting to register my car.
Fair enough. I guess what I would authorize as a board is we would authorize the clerks to be unavailable for those 7 times and let the office decide how they want to handle that.
That's good.
Fair enough.
So are we changing the motion?
I don't know. It's already been made.
Already been made and mostly voted on.
Could always draw it back.
What's your thought, Derlin? How would you like us to handle it?
Well, technically it isn't closed because, people can come in, they may be coming in to see Kim, or they may be coming in for other things. So we will be there, and it will be staff. They can come in and pay their taxes to the tax collector and things like that. So technically it's not closed, but there won't be vehicle registration services or town clerk services available during that particular time.
So I will restate my motion to say that we approve the clerks to be unavailable during their training for those 7 dates from 1 to 2:30.
And we can make it very clear what services won't be available during that hour and a half.
Perfect.
But
Thank you.
second,
Okay, Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you, Claire.
thanks, Claire. All right, time for the warrants, treasurer's warrants. Here we go. Warrants to be approved and signed. Town invoice AP 2149 in the amount of $362,612.55.
This is Wendy. I would move approval.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Okay, Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Okay, authorized warrants to be signed. Wendy, okay. Town state fees and payroll benefits, AP 2147 in the amount of $26,159.55. AP 2148 in the amount of $3,036.50. And town payroll, PR 2120 in the amount of $109,065.16.
Martha Dudman moves signature.
Matt
Jeff.
Hart seconds.
Okay. Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield abstains.
Okay, Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
And John votes aye. Okay. Warrants to be acknowledged, school invoice, school payroll, number 18, in the amount of $156,767.11.
This is Jeff Wood. I move acknowledgement of that amount for the school.
Wendy Littlefield seconds.
Right, Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Great. Good, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Don't forget before you go that we did move that meeting to 6:30 on the 8th. I think it's about, I don't know if it's printed.
It still says 4 on the
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I was going to ask that, and I'm glad
Yeah,
you
it's
brought
going
that
to
up.
be at 6:30.
Perfect.
Thank
for
you.
Martha. So thank you very much. Just wanted to clarify so you don't zoom in at 4 o'clock. So.
Won't be happening. I move, Jeff Wood, move adjournment.
All right,
Wendy Littlefield seconds.
great, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.